Boker Tov, Yom Tov, Zoharim Tovim, Laila Tov. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are at. This is Carrie, and I wanted to take a question that was presented to me and give you the answer for this. I thought it was a great one. I really, really appreciate those of you who type questions to me. Some of them are not as easy to answer, especially when they're questions regarding large passages of Scripture. And I will say that some of these questions I've had on these passages of Scripture are fantastic, and they do need to be addressed. And I will be getting to these things. But on this question, I thought it was probably a good idea for you guys to hear the answer presented as the question was asked. The question, it really was more of a statement, and then, so I just thought I'd clarify it. And it was, I'm learning that Strong's Concordance is not as trustworthy as one would believe. If there is a breakdown in verses between Hebrew and English, and then using Strong's to reinforce Hebrew, but the occurrences suggested is not always accurate in the Bible with manipulation. And certain numbers like Strong's 158 doesn't really mean love. It means better than love, but again, they give you the impression that it does. Then it is up to you to make a connection or not, and it's just very confusing. Strong's 158 could mean love, among other words, but then you see love and don't really see the truth. So it's kind of whitewashed again for me. Greek is backwards altogether. However, I never care about the middle of history, only the root. When you really get into Lucifer and Adamah and Chava, even my new interpretations are not 100% aligning with the message given here, which is using Strong's Concordance to back it up. I believe you understand what I'm getting at. I just need a video done upon shedding light with the above for clarity, if you don't mind. So my response to this is, I hear your cry, as it was ours as well, and that's what led us to the deeper waters of excavation, painstakingly searching for the resolve. This is why one needs to learn the letters of light and love and their coding system. Strong's did not have this. I also found more assistance using Ernest Klein's A Comprehensive Etymological Dictionary of the Hebrew Language as a better resource. But they will all fall short if you do not know the meaning of each Hebrew Aramaic letter. Each letter has a specific meaning, unlike English, where an A is just an A. In Hebrew, there is much more information held within each symbol, and each symbol is created with 3 other letter symbols that form an actual word that has meaning. That is why we say that Hebrew and Aramaic are a type of shorthand in their writings, and they're meant to be studied and not read, because there's so much information within each, not only each letter, but the combination of the letters to form the words. It's like paragraphs of information, one word at a time. So there's always going to be a longing for resolve if you are just looking at Strong's for the answer. It will still leave you needing more information, hence why you're asking the question as you did. That is why when we share, we show you the words and highlight the letters as we speak, because we are actually sharing the coded information found within each letter symbol, hence why we can find resolve within every word in every verse. The other thing that is helpful is you must have the comprehension of the 2 teaching patterns of mother and father as to what and why they are teaching as separate measures meant to be joined back into one. My suggestion is to learn the Paleo-Hebrew meanings of every letter, and then look at the Strong's words to see if you can find the resolve. It will definitely help. But the finality of that which you are seeking is through Father's esoteric side. But you must learn Mother first. The teaching series, As a Man Thinks, will show you this in a little bit more depth to help explain what I just shared. I also have an example of 2 ways of seeing the word, mother versus father, in a video that I did that has the word war in it. I will include those links, and hopefully this will help for those of you who are looking into some of the deeper things, because I will tell you, Strong's will lead you to want more information. And really, one of the things that Ken was suggesting is that mother's construct through the letters, through the Spirit, is that which gives you access to Father's teaching. We need to humble ourselves through the Spirit, which is what actually Mother does. And that will allow you to see the unseen of the esoteric side. And it'll speak to you through patience and practice. And I can tell you that in learning this, it's not a microwave answered or a Pez dispenser. It literally takes the time and energy to put in. And Mother is the hardest, because having to learn new letter symbols and shapes and then comprehend that all those meanings are found within those letters themselves. But once you do, you will be able to start to see at a greater depth the information that we're presenting. And then really, the goal is to be able to have you informed enough that you can begin digging on your own, so that many of these questions that come in regarding certain verses, you would be able to extract the information out for yourself. I will let you know that the letters over time, as they give you more light, and light is information, the more light that you have compressed within, the more that you will be able to see within the language. At the beginning, it was minimal for me as I was trying to excavate this out through Father's esoteric side, and I would be really excited when I saw things for the first time, but I've realized that over time my vision has increased, and things that I didn't see when I first started have now revealed themselves to me. So the language grows with us and we grow with it. And it's one of those things, does the chicken come before the egg or the egg before the chicken? Well, it's kind of a simultaneous thing in quantum relationship with one another that is deeply profound. So I hope this helps. For those of you who are starting in this process, if this is something you would like to do so that you can find resolve, I recommend making flashcards. I've suggested this before, but for anyone that's new, you can go to Jeff Benner's site, ancienthebrew.org, and he has a ton of information there. You don't have to buy his books, but if you have income and you want to, you can. They're great resources, but you can at least find the information you need to begin to make your own flashcards so that you can start learning the letters, because I will be doing a class on how to do the esoteric side, but it's important that you at least have the foundation of Mother's letters so that we can continue on this journey together, because that is part of the responsibility that you must undertake so that the deeper teachings can be shared and actually seen. I did want to add, and it's kind of an afterthought, so I'm inserting this in the video, but I wanted to add a little bit something more to the question that was being asked regarding Strong's number 158 in regards to love. I've actually pulled this up in Bible Hub so you can take a look at it. And I'm going to show you as one of the resources and why it is lacking, and why there is more information that needs to be required to be able to comprehend the extractions in the measure that we are pulling it out through the esoteric side. So we can see here, Strong's number 158 is love, and it's a noun. And when you go down to the information, it's affection in a good or bad sense. From Ahav, Strong's 157. And when you look at that and you trace it down, it will say that it is a primitive root to have affection for sexually or otherwise. But there is something I wanted you to note, and this is important, and you won't see this if you're looking, especially in English translations, they're not going to be able to capture this. And for you to know that there's anything different than the Strong's, you would not be able to comprehend this because you just wouldn't see it, especially if you're not looking at the verses. But here we have the root, Aleph Hey Bet. And then when it's written, so this is the root form, but when it's written, it has a tav added on the suffix side. Now you wouldn't see that when you are reading in translation, because you would see love, you love. But you wouldn't know that this actually has some meaning to it. This letter is added, and I can tell you this is the Father's covenant pertaining to unconditional love. But as we go down, you can see here in this word we have the vav, yod added to the prefix, we have the hey added to the suffix. Moving on down and looking at this, now we have a bet on the prefix and a tav vav on the suffix. You've seen us and you've heard us talk about the bet. The bet tav is building the covenant of love, the strong love, and then being marked tav vav with the mark from the Father, meaning that you're exempt from judgment because you're now walking in unconditional love. But these things you would not see. Here's another one. We have a noon yod added on the suffix and a yod added on the front in the prefix. There's another one down here that I wanted to show you. This one right here, where we have an added lamed. So instructions to love that gives you power. All of these letters, additions and deletions from the root word, have very, very specific meanings. And so I wanted to take a moment just to explain a couple things to you here. Whenever we look at a root word position, so just the root, what we were looking at down here at the bottom as a primitive root, this has to do with source and you as source. We are a fractal of source. Not in source totality, we are a fractal thereof. And so whenever something is within the primitive root, this is dealing with you and your connection to source as your being. And so in this situation, we're just going to use Deuteronomy 7:13 because we're right next to it. We have a root word, and there's nothing happening here to the root. It is staying in a static position until it becomes a verb, an action word, by the addition of the vav on the prefix and the kaf in the fallen position on the suffix. Anything that is added to the prefix of the word has to do with Mother's teaching. Specifically, as she helps assist us tame our beast ego nature. And we've used this many times and spoken of the golden rule. This is how we rightly orient ourselves towards the Father, towards Source, in how we're giving reverence there, and also how we handle ourselves around other people, how we treat them. We want to treat them the way we want to be treated. So it's all external orientation for the taming process. Now when we get to the suffix of the word, these are things pertaining to Father's teaching. Father's esoteric, deeper, hidden, which means dealing with the internal orientation of you, of what you're doing on the inside. And this is all about eradicating the beast ego nature, finding oneness through unconditional love, first for yourself, then extending it outwardly to others. Because whatever you do on the inside will manifest externally. I did have a question regarding the process of mother's love, or not mother's love, but the 22 letters of mother and 22 letters of father. And this is a good enough time as any to explain that. When we are talking about mother and father and the 22 letters and the 22 letters, it's the way that we are viewing the letters. I know it will probably seem confusing, but if we did not have the New Testament, which, by the way, the New Testament wasn't around in the time of Yeshua, it was in the process of being written. So the earlier church, before the other manuscripts were written and passed around as letters, all they had was the Tanakh, the Old Testament. So, and that predominantly is written in Hebrew. There are a couple books in Aramaic. The way we would be looking at this is that the 22 letters of mother is the way we view the words through the paleo meanings. And I have put out a video in the past that has to do with war and how we look at the word war through mother's eyes and how we look through it through father's eyes. So the first pass through of the letters, the 22 letters, the Aleph through the Tav, is going to be the paleo meanings of the letters based on the meaning of the word itself. And you'll be able to see that in the video regarding war. The second pass through, however, of the 22 letters is where you're getting into the deeper insight of the letters by looking at their forms, how the symbols are built with other letters. So in English, an A is an A, like I shared before, but in Hebrew, the Aleph is actually made of 3 letters, an Aleph, Lamed, and a Pei, that actually form the symbol. So we take that and those meanings in consideration. Then we can extrapolate further and take in the vowel points. They all have meanings and spellings. And the cannellation marks, they all have meanings and spellings. So if you want an exhaustive interpretation, I would suggest for you to look at the teaching series As a Man Thinks to be able to see that drilled down a little bit more. When we look at Hebrew and Aramaic, however, this is where you can also say the 22 letters of Mother and 22 letters of Father. Mother teaches the divine masculine, which is very linear in thinking, and this is being taught through the Hebrew. Even though there are two different perspectives of how we look at it through teaching of Mother, if she is teaching her children, versus teaching of Father, which the adult children are being instructed. But Father, if you want to connect that to Aramaic, teaches the divine feminine, and that is more what the Aramaic is teaching. There's lineal of Mother and then spiral of Father, and the spiral of the divine feminine and the linear of the masculine, divine masculine, and they are meant to overlay one another. I know that it is difficult to visually comprehend this, but as we begin classes, you will be able to see this a lot more clearly in the process of instruction. The only other thing that might help for you to make a consideration is this. Children can only take in so much information based on their age. So what you would be teaching a 5-year-old is much different than what you would be teaching a 15 or an 18-year-old. So these teachings are split and divided in part based on the maturation process. And it's very much that way as adults entering in, that Mother is the hardest, because for an adult to have to learn a new language, and again, it's not that in order for you to see these things you have to learn how to speak it. It's meant to be studied in an extraction, word by word, letter by letter, as it speaks to you through the Spirit. So Mother's is the most difficult, because you're having to learn the symbol shapes, you're having to learn the paleo meanings, you need to be able to write them. I mean, there's a lot involved, and it's not a lot of fun, because you're having to rewire your brain to see something different. And it's, for some people they'll find joy in it, and other people will find drudgery. What you are all wanting is to probably get to where Ken and I are in the extractions, because that's what we're sharing with you. We're sharing with you the extraction from the Father's teaching, but we had to go through the painstaking process of Mother. So I hope this helps. Please watch the videos that I'm going to be attaching to it if you want a little bit more information. Like I said, there's a teaching series, As a Man Thinks, that I will go ahead and connect to this, and then I will also be putting the individual video in the title where it speaks about war, the mother's perspective and the father's perspective. So I hope this helps, and now you can see why the Strong's Concordance is just not enough for you to be able to extract what you need to get the deepest instruction meaning for life-changing processing. And we will be doing our best to be able to assist and bring these teachings forward. I just ask for patience. It takes a lot of time to put these things together, and it's just our family that are doing things for this. And actually it's just kind of me putting the videos together, so lots of works to do. I hope this finds you well, and I hope it answers some questions for you. Shalom, shalom, and namaste.